Safia here from New Habits. I am just checking that everything is working as it should. Give me a moment, please. I'm just seeing that I'm live on my phone as well. Yeah. So how are you doing? I am struggling a bit here with light. As I look out my window, I can actually think that in a week or two, maybe 3 weeks, there's actually still going to be natural light outside. It's getting late. It's getting dark later, so it's so awesome. So how have you been? It has been a long weekend, and I hope that you had some nice time to connect with yourselves, that you had some nice time to just do everything that you wanted to do. I know for my part, I really, really managed to disconnect. I really took some downtime. I switched off. I can't see actually that I am live yet. Where am I? Am I live? If there is anyone here with me, okay, there we go. I am with me on my phone. Let me switch that off. Okay. So in this session, I wanted to chat about the zone of genius. And I think it is such an awesome conversation, especially given that the last video that I delivered onto the timeline was a video very specifically around how important it is for us to spend time in our comfort zone, how our comfort zone is a place in which we are able to experience trust in ourselves, enough safety with ourselves, and that we have the ability to bring to life the things that truly matter to us. You know, so often I hear and I experience myself how emotionally and how psychologically and actually how physically and spiritually debilitating it is to feel stuck and to feel as though you're so feverishly busy, but you're not accomplishing anything that matters to you. Very, very few things are as heartbreaking as that, and very, very few things are as, where you alienate yourself from yourself when you are feeling stuck. I can't see who is online with me, but hello and welcome, and please keep chatting to me. It helps me a bit. So when we are in our comfort zone, we have strength, we have resilience, we have resourcefulness, and we are able to grow. I know that there is common, what is it, pop culture? I don't know what the right expression is at the moment, but this idea that if we are in our comfort zone, we don't grow, that is absolutely not true. It's when we are in our survival zone that we are struggling to grow. But when we're in our comfort zone, we are far more closer to our zone of genius, which is the conversation we are having today. And when we are in our zone of genius, we are doing the kinds of things that really, really allows us to feel connected to ourselves, to feel connected to the work that we're doing, and to feel connected to the people that we are doing the work with. So your zone of genius is really one of those win-win experiences. I think it is just so important that we spend the time with ourselves to discover what our zone of genius is. And yes, absolutely, it is true that, and whenever I mention this to people, they will say, but, I have a job, I have bills, I have expenses. But, that is black and white thinking. And we don't have to go to black and white thinking. We don't have to go all or nothing thinking. All we have to do is to get the conversation going with ourselves and start exploring what our zone of genius is, what it feels like when we're doing the things that are in our zone of genius. And maybe over time, we can start integrating it into how we earn a living. All we need to do once we understand what being in our zone of genius feels like, what we're doing is to start making space for it in our lives. And, I hear so often from people, and I will go through what the various zones are and what it is like, how to get into your zone of genius. But I hear so often from people that, things like the zone of genius is idealistic and it's unrealistic, and they are caught up in their real lives, and they don't have any talents and skills that are really money-making talents and skills. But here is something important for us to recognize and to register. We live in an amazing, amazing time. We live in the time of the internet. And in the time of the internet, we've seen things flourish that we've never seen flourishing before. We've also seen people doing things and being paid handsomely for it. And yes, some people are paid handsomely, like, Trevor Noah gets paid a hell of a lot of money to talk nonsense. I mean, I get it. He does a lot of political analysis, but essentially he gets paid a lot of money to talk nonsense. So maybe not everybody is at Trevor Noah's level, but there are literally hundreds of comedians in South Africa that are earning a decent living, just entertaining people, talking nonsense, and having a laugh. And there's no reason why, your version of that cannot also become something that you are able to earn a living with. But we're not there yet. So I also think about the gardening industry. I mean, there are people who are gardeners who are calling themselves landscapers, and the kind of lifestyle that they are creating for themselves is just so lovely. I know someone who does gardening, does landscaping, is outside all the time, is scratching around in the dirt, is creative, and just enjoys himself so much. And one of the things that he says over and over and over again is, if I could do this for free, I would. I don't have to be paid for it. I just love doing it. And so that's already one of the clues of what it's like to be in your zone of genius. So before I go through what the zone of genius is, I just want to remind you about something. And this is one of the things that I confront every single day in the work that I do. I work in the space of helping people to establish their careers in a way that feels meaningful to them. And typically what is happening for them when they come into the world of working with me, one of the things that is happening for them is that they are feeling drained, they're feeling exhausted, they're feeling hell of a stressed out, and they are just fundamentally disengaged. Now, in the world of work today, disengagement is at an all-time high. There are some statistics that indicate that in excess of 80% of the world's working population at all levels of organizations, including business owners themselves, are either slightly, moderately, or seriously disengaged from their work. Another frightening statistic is that the rate at which people are succumbing to anxiety and stress disorders is escalating at an alarming rate. So from year to year, it is increasing in excess of 20%. That is staggering. And this is not just about how people are feeling. And it's bad enough if people are feeling the ravages of stress disorders and anxiety disorders, but it's also descending into their physical bodies. So when we are not working and doing work where we are feeling engaged, when we are doing work on an ongoing basis where we are feeling completely bulleted by the pressures of our work, and there's no rewarding outlets for us in the work that we're doing, what is happening is that we are falling prey to many, many illnesses, heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, ongoing headaches that we can't get rid of, and even injuries that we are unable to recover of because our fascia, which is the almost like connective tissue throughout our body, is inflamed, and so we can't recover. I remember when I was in corporate, I used to be in pain all the time. I used to have headaches and back spasms and every other kind of spasm. And this was a function of the fact that I was experiencing an incredible amount of stress. And I don't know about you, but it is just not a rewarding state to be in if you are in pain all the time. So when we are working in a way that takes us away from the rewarding functions of work, and work is rewarding. For me, one of the things that is so important is that the work that we do must be rewarding. And it doesn't only have to be rewarding in the sense of financial rewarding. It has to be rewarding to us in the sense that it gives us that feeling of satisfaction at the end of the day, that we did something that put a bit of a song in our heart. And sometimes our workday gives us cartwheels, and other days it's just enough for us to feel like this was a good day. And so my question to you is, how many days do you have where you feel as though, at the end of your workday, it was a good day? You felt great. You felt like you did something for someone that matters, or you did something for yourself that matters. And, these are important questions to ask us, because the consequences of a working environment that is unrewarding is incredibly dire to all of us. So let's get into what the zone of genius is. By now, there should already be in the group 2 documents. And the one document is a document that allows you to have a conversation with yourself, so you can start exploring what it is that will bring you into your zone of genius. And the other document is a little graphic that that you can use to see where the various zones are. But the zone of genius is a idea that was propagated by a guy by the name of Gay Hendricks. And Gay Hendricks put out a book called The Big Leap. And I really encourage you to get yourself a copy of The Big Leap, even if you just get yourself some YouTube videos and see what he has to say in the videos about the zone of genius and the value that it brings into your life. But basically what Gay Hendricks says is that there are 4 zones that we operate from. The first zone, and the 4 zones that he's got, gives us an indication of how we are using our time and how we are using our talents and our skills and how we're bringing our traits to life, and all those kinds of things. So what he's got are these 4 zones, and I'm going to take you through the zones. I'm going to take you through the experience of the zones, and you can start tracking where you might be in each of the zones. Now, I'm not going to suggest for a moment that everything we do is in our zone of genius. What is important is that we are spending a bit of time in the zone of genius on a regular basis. I would say that you want to be spending at least 25% of your time in your zone of genius. And so you can start having a look in your own day, in your own week, in your own month. How much of your time are you spending in your zone of genius? And my invitation to you is to not only look in your work life, look in your home life, look in your social life, look in all the various functions of your life or aspects of your life. You might actually be spending more time in your zone of genius than you give yourself credit for. Especially if you're only looking in your one area of your life, which is your work life. So the first zone that Gay Hendricks indicates is the zone of incompetence. Now, the zone of incompetence is not necessarily just a function of, I haven't yet learned how to do something. It's one of those things. So for me, for instance, it's one of those things where you can try your hand at it over and over and over again, but you just don't get really good at it. So for me, for instance, there are certain things. Excel is one of those things. It doesn't matter how many people explain Excel to me, and it doesn't matter how many times I try to do this damn thing. Excel defeats me. It just defeats me completely. So you are in a zone of incompetence when you look around you, just about anyone and everyone can do this particular kind of work better than you do. For a long time, I thought that certain aspects of cooking was in my zone of incompetence, that I had no ability to move towards competence in it. Now, the reason why I raise this is because sometimes there are things that you don't really enjoy. There are things that you can feel very, very defeated doing, but you can get good at it. Now, there are some things, like for me, for Excel, I've remained in my zone of incompetence no matter how many times I've tried it. And there are always going to be people who do it really, really exceptionally well. I'm just not going to close the gap between myself and those people. What did happen in 2020 for me, though, was that I started to experiment with cooking, the things that I felt was just outside of my realm of capability. And lo and behold, after trying my hand at it a few times, I got pretty good at it, so much so that now I am actually offering to make it for social events and social gatherings, and I'm starting to do it quite confidently. So the zone of competence is the zone in which you've started to do something, you're doing it well enough. The thing, though, is that even though you're doing it well enough and you can hold your own doing it, you're probably never going to get exceptional at it. So with the cooking thing, I'm never ever going to be exceptional at it. I'm always going to make it good enough for no one to complain. Occasionally, biryani queen, I can almost imagine who was online with me. But yeah, I was scared. I'm not going to swear now, but I was scared out of my mind to make biryani. But anyway, so I make biryani now and it's decent enough. I can hold my own. But I'm not going to cook biryani for 25 people or for 30 people or for a function, right? And I'm never ever going to enjoy it. I'm never going to fall out of my skin. I'm never going to fall out of over my feet to make biryani or to cook, for that matter. It is something that I do because I can, I have to, and there is a decent payoff for doing it. The next zone, so the question is, before I go on to the next zone, is what are you doing that you're doing well enough? You're doing it well enough so that no one's going to turn their nose up at you, but you're also not you're not doing it better than anyone else. And there's no real intrinsic satisfaction. There's no like excitement. There's no, oh my God, I can't wait to do it. And there's no like, when I'm doing it, I get lost in time when I'm doing it. I feel good. I feel like I'm just exploding inside of me when I'm doing it. What is that for you? How much of your work are you doing, or what of the work are you doing that you're feeling like it's great, you're doing a decent job? But in spite of the fact that you're doing a decent job, it's not really exciting you, it's not inspiring you. And even if it does excite you and inspire you, the longevity of that inspiration and the excitement with which you return to it is not quite as great as other things. So then the next zone that Gay Hendricks indicates is, he says to us, the next zone is the zone of excellence. This is the zone that you've got to start tapping into more and more and more. Here you are doing things that you really and truly enjoy doing, and you can make a good living doing these things. And more importantly, when you're doing this work, you're doing it better than other people. You're doing it at such a level that you become sought after, you become a go-to person for this. And when we start understanding this, we start recognizing that we have real talent, we have real skill in this space. And this space is the beginning of a very, very productive conversation with you, with yourself. This is important because when we are thinking about how much time we're spending doing work that we really enjoy, work that we really, really excel at, then very often, in my experience with the work that I do with my clients, they're spending very little time doing this. Now, one of the very typical scenarios that I encounter, and this was my scenario as well, was you become really good at doing certain kinds of work, and then you get promoted into a leadership role. And the one thing that really taxes you, the thing that you can do competently, but you just don't enjoy, is the leadership of people. One thing that I feel very, very strongly and very passionately about is if you're going to step into a leadership role, if you're going to start taking responsibility for delivering work through other people, where you have to motivate people, where you have to get people onto a single vision, where you have to get people to move and to pull in the same direction, where you've got to get people all sitting in the right bus, in the right seat in the bus. This is a labor of love, and too many people that I encounter are finding themselves in leadership positions where they are not moving past, or they don't have it in them to move past the zone of competence, and they cannot step into the zone of excellence, let alone the zone of genius around it, and becomes incredibly, incredibly taxing to them. And the challenge is that the work of leadership takes them away from the thing that they actually do with excellence. So if this is something that you're experiencing, what can you do about it? How can you approach whatever it is that you're doing and find more time and more space to do the work that you really love? What is the mental pattern that is telling you that, in order for me to progress, in order for me to do better, to earn more money, to have more prestige in my job, I have to step into a leadership role, when in truth, there's a good chance that for you in particular, you might step into a leadership role and it might just be something that depletes you and decimates you. Because one of the things that happens to so many people who are in leadership roles, and I know that I'm belaboring this thing around leadership, it can be true for any other thing, but one of the things that happens with people who are in leadership roles is that they suddenly become incredibly disenchanted with the work that they're doing. They start to feel very, very negatively about the relationship they have with the employer. Now, I'm not suggesting that you don't give work that you're not feeling very excited about an opportunity to see if you can make your way into the genius zone and into the zone of excellence. There is a hero's journey that you might go through that might get you to a place where this is all feeling excellent and genius to you. But you would know very, very quickly whether or not this is something that is turning you on, whether there is something that you just more skill that you need, more exposure, more mentorship, coaching, guidance, training. But it is important that you keep having this conversation with yourself and you keep understanding what your agenda is and what you want to accomplish to make sure that you are on track to experience excellence and ultimately genius in what you're doing, or if this is just something that is never going to pan out for you. So the next zone that Gay Hendricks speaks about, which is the final zone, and it's the zone of genius. Now, if we are in the zone of genius, there are certain things that happen for us. The one thing that happens for us when we're in our zone of genius is that we have all the benefits of being in our zone of excellence. We're really good at what we're doing. We are sought after. We are really the expert in that space. We are able to marry our personal traits with the work that we are doing. We are able to lie awake at night in a state of not stress and anxiety, but alert and excitedness, because we have got ideas just mushrooming all over us when we are thinking about the things that we are doing. One of the things that is true for me when I'm in my genius zone is that I am experiencing the ability to keep returning to the work over and over and over without becoming bored of it. I remain curious about it. I keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And, when my friends are around who know about me being the biryani queen and they want to have a conversation about whatever, and I just bring the conversation back to this thing that I love talking about, then I know I'm in my zone of genius. I also think that when we are in our zone of genius, we are talking about things that typically we deeply, deeply care about. Now, one of the things that I've recognized is that when we are in our zone of genius, very often the thing that we tap into is the thing that I call our mess. And our mess becomes our message. So for me, for instance, me now working with people who are really battling to, or not battling, they are really determined to go through this journey and slay the monsters and defeat the dragons in their minds, is around establishing the leadership brand. Because for me, when I went through my leadership journey, it was a tough and challenging journey for me. It wasn't something that came to me naturally, but I felt very, very devoted and very driven to making myself into the kind of leader that I wanted to have as a leader. And in spite of the fact that it was hard and challenging, I returned to the mission over and over and over again. Another thing that for me feels very mission orientated, that stems from a mess in my life, is the fact that I started my burnout journey at the age of 15. My first big episode of burnout happened when I was 15 years old. And then I just had many, many more burnout events in my life. So what are the things that are, your messes in your life? And what are the things that are the experiences of your life? Not only the messes, but also the good experiences that allow you to start recognizing where you might have unique strength, where you might have a unique aptitude, where the traits of your personality are so beautifully suited to intersecting with this kind of work. And again, I encourage you, when you go on a discovery of this kind of these kinds of activities and these aspects of yourself, my invitation to you is, don't just look in your work life. What are you good at? Are you the kind of person that can just approach people and have a conversation with people and feel energized once you've had a conversation with people? If you are and you're in a back office somewhere and you're not connecting with people, then you're absolutely not going to experience your zone of genius. Are you someone who, is creative in many different ways? And I don't only mean in the traditional art ways. I'm talking about creative in terms of solving problems and analyzing data. There are so many different ways in which we can be in our genius. And I think it's just really, really important to recognize that each and every single one of us comes to this world with our unique strengths, our unique talents, our unique gifts, our unique curiosities and interests, and those aptitudes that we have that just allow us to do things in a way that other people with the same knowledge and the same opportunities just can't quite pull it together. I have this friend, I think you are with me online. Wasif, are you with me online? He knows how to pull a room together. He has no formal training in it. He has no ability, he has no like I said, formal training and no schooling in it. And yet, when he pulls a room together, it is always a masterpiece. It is always beautiful and gorgeous. This is an aptitude that he has. And if you ask him how he comes by it, he quite literally says, don't know, it's just how it is. Sure, he looks at magazines and stuff, but he picks up trends before the trend is even announced, before it's even out there in the world. It's just how his eye is tuned. So how is your eye tuned? How is your ear tuned? How is your gut? How's your heart? How's your mind tuned to be able to facilitate your passage into your zone of genius? And I think it's just so important that you go through your week, you go through your month, your year, your day, your hour even, and go look for how much time are you spending in your zone of incompetence. If you're spending a lot of time in your zone of incompetence, you need to start finding ways to start ditching these things and start getting them out of your life, or you need to start outsourcing them somehow. If you're spending way too much time in your zone of incompetence, it's not going to be good for you. Let me just switch this thing off here. It's not going to be good for you morally, emotionally. It's just going to create a lot of stress and anxiety for you, and it's going to create a lot of angst in the way in which you interact with the people with whom you are doing this kind of work. How much time are you spending in your zone of competence? And with the work that you have in your zone of competence, is there an appetite to go through this work and cultivate it into excellence, or is competence just where you're going to pretty much leave it? Do you know enough about it to feel safe and confident with it, but you're not necessarily wanting to cultivate it beyond where you're at? How much of your time are you spending in the space? And how much of this can you actually start delegating? Then the question is, how much time are you spending in your zone of excellence? Now, your zone of excellence and your zone of genius differs in one material way. It's just the emotional connection that you have. The zone of excellence does not necessarily give you that degree of connection to yourself and to the work and to the people with whom you are doing and delivering the work. Whereas when in your zone of genius, you are losing time, the space feels different, and how you feel physically is quite different. Whereas in your zone of excellence, you might still feel quite tense, there might still be resistance to the work, there might still be a lot of irritation that you're experiencing. Whereas in your zone of genius, the irritants are there, but your degree of resistance is very, very low. You can't be bothered with the admin part, you can't be bothered with the details, you can't be bothered with those things because you're just so caught up in it. I know that there are a lot of people, and in his book, Gay Hendricks speaks about the zone of genius as the zone of genius is not an area of, it doesn't feel like work. I'm not a big proponent of that. I like work to feel like work. I don't have an objection to working. I feel good when I work. I feel just, I love work. And so I don't want things to not feel like work. I suppose it's your own relationship with work, but my relationship with work is one in which I'm quite eager for work to be part of my life. So all I want for myself is that work feels rewarding, it feels good, it nurtures my heart, it nurtures my soul, it nurtures my mind, and it doesn't take its toll on my body. In fact, when I'm working in my zone of genius, I can almost feel the knots leave my back. I can feel myself get lost in time. And so I'd love to hear your experience of what it's like in your zone of genius, because I can guarantee you, you do have a zone of genius. So this is all good and well, and we all have a zone of genius, and we all have all these different zones, and aspirationally we all want to operate from our zone of genius, because when we are in our zone of genius, we are also in our comfort zone, and from our comfort zone, we can grow exponentially, and we can really make a name, and we can really brand ourselves exceptionally when we are in this space. The question is then, why aren't all of us, if all of us have a zone of genius, why aren't we all in our zone of genius? What's the problem? And in his book, Gay Hendricks speaks about, we all have these upper limit challenges. And the upper limit challenges are what I suppose everyone else calls the self-limiting beliefs that hold us back from accessing all the potentials that live inside of us. It's all the stories that we carry. It's that narrative that we carry and we hold onto that stops us from taking the journey to our zone of genius. The one thing that I'm very, very aware of, and the one thing that I'm absolutely experiencing and have experienced repeatedly in the past, is that when we are going to make a way to the zone of genius, there is a hero's journey that we have to go on. And on the hero's journey, we live life normally, and then there is a pull at our heart. There is a tug, there's a little voice in our head that says, that might be nice. And at first we don't respond to it. And over time, the tug or the voice in our heads gets louder and louder and louder. And as I mentioned earlier, the way in which it gets louder and louder and louder is that our level of engagement plummets, our stress levels, our anxiety levels increase, we start to feel unwell, we start to feel depressed, we start to experience deep, deep melancholy about what we're doing already. And we go about doing what we're doing, and there is this thump that comes along. There is something that the universe sends our way and just says to us, this nonsense has to stop. So sometimes it is severe illness because we're just so stressed and anxious. Sometimes we get retrenched. Sometimes if we're business owners and we keep doing business that isn't good for us, the business just automatically or just kind of spontaneously dries up. And it's because our energy is no longer in it, because there is this thing beckoning us. And so ultimately the hero has to say, you know what, I've been ignoring it, I've been avoiding it, but it's getting too demanding. I have to make my way to this thing. And as we make our way towards our zone of genius and towards expressing our gift and towards expressing this thing that is calling us, we encounter these monsters and these dragons of our mind. Typically, we're talking about people pleasing. One of the things that we are very, very, very frightened of. Did I say very, very? I mean very, 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 very frightened of is our own success. Now, it sounds counterintuitive. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but this is an absolute truth. When we become successful, we quite literally separate from the crowd. And one of the most primal things that we experience as human beings is being in the crowd. Yes, we want the stature of being out of the crowd, but we want the emotional and the mental comfort of being part of the crowd. And we have to make our way to a new crowd. And finding our way to a new tribe or new crowd can be incredibly disorienting. And one of the things that is very, very challenging is those people that are closest to us, that know us in a certain mold, they too are holding on to their version of reality, and they will potentially, not always, but they will potentially speak to us in a way that is an expression of their own fears and their own concerns as we make our way to our zone of genius. And it might come across as if they're saying to us, we're not too happy about this move you're making. And one of the most primitive sensations in our body is to seek comfort in the familiarity of what we know. So we're just going to seek comfort in the familiarity of what we know. And then there are these people who it's looking like we're going to start having a tenuous relationship with. And so we resist making that move because of that comfort. And so there's this people-pleasing element. There's this fear of our own success element. Another upper limit is the fact that we have a very, very aggressive inner critic running around in our minds. Very often I think that our subconscious is not just an inner critic. It is like a toddler running around in our minds with sharp instruments. And, it keeps us so preoccupied, making sure that the struggler with the sharp instruments doesn't damage anything, that we don't actually focus on where we want to go. And so how the inner critic operates is it keeps us distracted. It keeps us distracted with destructive messages, and it sends us after things that very logically show up in our life that keeps us busy. One of the things for me, for instance, that my inner critic does on a regular basis is it tells me that I have to get my head around one more piece of technology. I have to just get my head around one more thing, then I'm going to be good enough to be able to share what I know. Another way in which I get my upper limit coming at me, for instance, which is also around the people-pleasing element as well as the inner critic, is that when things come really easy to me, when I'm actually operating from my zone of genius, I dismiss it. I just discount it. I'm like, but everyone knows this. Everyone should be able to do this. And I'm quite sure that is something that's going to be true for you as well. And so we really need to just watch out for that. I have got this new awareness that I want to share with you, and it's an upper limit awareness. And it's this awareness that I have a very deeply held belief that if it is not hard, if it's not difficult, then it can't be valuable. And so if it's, like I said, if it comes easily to me, I discount it completely. And yet that is my genius. And I know this and I understand this intellectually, but somewhere in my subconscious, there is this little toddler running around with sharp instruments and it's slashing at this awareness. And it's telling me, don't be foolish. Everybody knows this, there's no value in it. What are your versions of exactly that? Because I can guarantee you that inside of that, there is amazing amounts of information available to you. The next, well, I can't say to you the next upper limit issue, but there are just so many upper limit issues, is our typical feelings around procrastination, our worries, our concerns, our black and white thinking. And when we are caught up in black and white thinking, everything becomes drastic. And then we can't quite figure out how we can delegate things. We can't quite sit with the evaluation because we make everything important. We make everything a priority. We make everything necessary. And we talk ourselves out of every single opportunity purely because what we truly are is afraid. We're not yet going through, we haven't yet completed our hero's journey. And in order to complete our hero's journey, we've got to start sitting with these fears that we have. All the upper limit problems are fears, all the upper limit problems, whether they are worries, whether they are the ways in which the countless ways in which we self-sabotage, whether they are how we deflect, they are just, I can't possibly catalogue all the ways in which we present self-limiting beliefs, but it is important to spend time and to discover them. One of the recommendations I want to make is that you find yourself someone with whom you can conspire to move into your zone of genius. One of the biggest traits of people who are successful in a zone of genius that allows them to approach their work with a sense of freedom is that they surround themselves with people who either have common interests or who are cheerleaders for them as they make their way to their journey, zone of genius, doing work that is very, very true and aligned for them. There's a bit of research that a guy by the name of Marcus Buckingham did, and he indicates that there are a million different ways in which people are successful. There is very, very little that they actually have in common, other than this. The people who are successful are people who become very, very deliberate about doing work that feels really rewarding, good, satisfying, and energizing to them. They find ways to eliminate or to decrease drastically anything that does not feel like it will allow them to breathe freely, that will take them away from feeling aligned. They do anything and everything they can to decrease materially, if not completely, the work that doesn't feel good to them in all four parts of them: their minds, their bodies, their hearts, their souls, and then also socially. So the question is, what are you willing to take off your plate? What are you willing to ditch? What are you willing to delegate? What parts of what you are doing on a daily basis must you evaluate? Who can you find to conspire with to help you and to support you as you make your way onto the zone of genius? You're going to need the conversation and the space with someone who, when you start hitting your self-limiting beliefs, they can come to you and say, you are now self-sabotaging. You are now not allowing yourself to feel the discomfort and to make your way through the hero's path. The hero's path is not a path in which we, emerge from in the same way as we entered. By the time we come out at the other end of the hero's path, we have shifted things materially inside of us. We emerge as a different person. But see if it is you. Are you going to outsource? I can't see on StreamYard who it is. You're not outsourcing your cooking to me. That is my zone of competence, not my zone of genius, please. Anyway, so I really want to encourage you to find company, share your dreams, share the things that you are really good at and that you want to spend more time doing. Share that with someone. Ask the person if they will be your co-conspirator, if they will be your partner in crime. Ask them if they will help you to explore ways past your limitations, past your all or nothing thinking, past your black and white thinking, that will get you to do more of the things that live in your zone of genius. I advocate this with all my heart because here's what I know. Every single person that I know who enjoy their work are doing work that feels good for them and that allow them to feel good in their own skins. Don't make it possible for yourself to be part of that 80% of people who are disengaged in the work that they're doing. Now, the work that we are doing is how we contribute. It's how we bring to life the things inside of ourselves. It's how we take it from our imagination into the world out there. And so there are things that's in your imagination. And maybe when you begin doing things that are in your zone of genius, you're not going to get paid for it, but do it anyway. Just don't know how the universe and the world around you, the people around you, are going to conspire with you to make it something that you can ultimately make a living and a living doing. I need a sip of water. Yeah, so please remember, we're living in a time where people are doing amazing things. People are combining various aspects of their lives, from play and work and all the different aspects that just seem illogical and counterintuitive, and then they're creating ways of being in the world that is just completely rewarding for them. I see every single day on the internet people doing smashing work. People are combining analytical work and scientific stuff and art, and they're creating amazing products. They're creating amazing offerings. Then there are people who are doing simple things. They're not necessarily being rewarded for it financially, but it gives them so much zest, so much energy, so much peace of mind and peace of heart. And they do it because there's so much joy in it for them, and it's so rewarding. And so, how much are you doing that is in your zone of genius? I'd really, really love to hear from you. Thank you for spending all this time with me. I hope that you get some value out of this chat. And please remember, in the group's timeline, I've added a worksheet that can guide you through the questions that you can ask yourself. Give yourself the time and the space, and this doesn't have to be a one and done kind of thing. You can quite literally return to this conversation every single week, every single month, every single day, because who you are and what you are and how you show up to the world shifts all the time. When you experience the zone of genius, new things open up to you, and there are always more opportunities for you to deepen the extent in which you are in your zone of genius. Become creative about the ways in which you can outsource things. Become creative about the jobs you can start looking for that allows you to step into your genius, or the hobbies that you can start looking for. It is just so important that you give yourself this time and this space. Remember, when you're in your zone of genius, you are deeply connected to yourself. So in order to make your way to your zone of genius, you have to start connecting with yourself. The answers are out there in things like psychometrics and other kinds of tools. But the best answers are inside of you. As much as the psychometrics can help you, and I will add a link in the timeline, in the group's timeline somewhere. I think with the worksheet, I will add a link where you can go and have a assessment done for free. It's incredibly informative. But the answers are inside of you. So take the time, connect in, and discover what your zone of genius might look like. And it might be an unexpected combination of your traits, gifts, and talents. We don't know, but put it out there, play with it, and allow it to reveal itself over time. So that's my story for this evening. I really and truly hope that there is good value for you in the session. Oh, it's Tanya. Tanya, am I cooking for you? Tanya, you don't want me cooking for you on the regular, because I assume I get angry with the food. Anyway, have a great evening further. And I'll be here next week. Bye for now.